Millions of people every single day are logging into Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and a wide range of other LLMs. Sometimes they're looking for products, sometimes they're looking to achieve a task. And the person that I speak to in this upcoming episode has deep knowledge after years and decades of studying tools like ChatGPT, Grok, Platinum. Brittany, thank you so much for making the time. Really appreciate it. I was trying to figure out how long ago we met. I think we're hitting the decade mark. I think we've like been OGs here long enough to go back like 10 years maybe. It's wild. It's
Can you
crazy.
believe that? That's
It
nuts.
is insane. There's been a lot of change since those early days of wonderful halls of MozCon and all of that good stuff. But I'd love to dive into some of the big changes that have happened right now and what you're seeing in the market. Like, there's a lot of hype around AI, there's a lot of hype around GEO, etc. What is the thing that you think right now people are just getting wrong about the entire shift in search and discovery?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people are missing here is that it's a completely different technology. It behaves and operates completely differently than traditional search engines. We're trying to kind of stuff AI into this old SEO mental model that worked back when we started in this industry. And those things like ranking factors, the ability to reverse engineer how it's producing
Mhm.
something, that doesn't work with LLM. It really doesn't.
Right.
And so I think people are kind of getting it wrong in that way for lack
Yeah.
of of a new mental model or understanding about the tech.
That's cool. Let's go a little bit deeper into that. So, what do you think does that mean? Like, explain it to me like I'm 16.
Yeah.
What do you mean by there's a disconnect in terms of understanding the tech and how it's actually so different?
Yeah, I mean, I think at face value, it behaves very much like a chat interface, right? And because
Mm,
of that, because it's confidently amalgamating answers and outputs to us, we give it a lot more weight than I feel the systems like deserve, right? It feels very intelligent, feels very
right.
confident in knowing, and it behaves a little bit, like search, right? We can type in more nuanced queries, more natural language information to get some answers. But I think what we're missing here is that there's two things happening. There's the base LLM model that is basically a frozen snapshot in time, trained once a year, if that. So it's already outdated by the time it comes online. And in
Right.
order to supplement and kind of keep it updated on information, these companies connect the LLMs to real time search results. So, whether that be Google or Bing, it's retrieving these background queries and contextual information to stay relevant, to stay updated, to hopefully provide you with a little bit better output and performance as far as the LLM is concerned. That's two totally different things that are taking place. And so I think it's important to know the difference, know when that search is being deployed and
Mm,
how much of effect that has on the actual delivered outputs, but then just to contextually know the difference between like that core LLM and in a search engine. LLMs, they're fed all of the text on the internet.
yeah.
They don't even get fed the URLs of the
Right.
text that they're trained on. Like they have no concept of where the
Mm,
stuff even comes from. They have no concept of like any kind of domain authority or trust signals, none of that. It's all equally the same. And what
mm,
gets represented is it essentially magnifies the training data, magnifies, the most common or popular brands and outputs,
right.
and it doesn't really represent outliers or people in other parts of the world that well. So it's
Right.
something to consider. And then when it is connected to real-time search results, that is still something we can influence in different ways. But even
Yep.
that is so interesting. SEO will continue to be important because of that delivery method to LLMs, but we're seeing this like slight step change in how people are approaching it. There's an AI startup that I know about through an advisor I work with, and they they just started, right? They just kind of came about. They have no chance to rank for some of these desirable terms,
Right.
and
Right.
so
Right.
they shell out huge money to have
Yeah.
an advertisement on one of the most commonly surfaced domains for this particular query. And this, I think it was specifically through ChatGPT or whatever. It was commonly pulling this one
Yep.
URL. They didn't care about a link. They didn't care
Mm,
about CTA. They just needed the brand mention so that they could
right.
be baked into that answer, and it worked. Like those
Wow.
those are kind of like the step changes that we, I think, need to be considering more. And so things like that are super interesting. I mean, you've been all over this forever, like the social media plays and the fact that
Right.
AI can't compete with
Right.
real, human people and stories and anecdotes. And so
Yeah.
that's why, Google immediately partnered with Reddit a couple years ago, $60 million a
Mm,
year for all their data. We continue
yep.
to see them kind of shoving social media posts into the SERPs because, again, it gives users that option. Like, here's a succinct kind of amalgamated AI answer, or here's, real testimonies from real people across the internet. And I've seen people play that really well too, where they know, and you know this, like Google's transcribing those videos. And so
Yep.
you can be really savvy about
Yep.
what you say, how you open a video so that that's all fed in and you get surfaced among these AI answers. And so
Mm,
those are kind of, that's the methodology that I think is really interesting right now. But again, just to be aware of those two things taking place is so
yeah.
important.
So something that everyone is trying to figure out is how can you show up in the LLMs and what should we actually do as marketers and brands? And I'm sure as someone who has deep experience in the world of LLMs, AI, like you were really early, definitely, probably, I'd say definitely one of the first three people in this SEO world to like go all into the AI and machine learning world and stuff like that. People come to you asking this question probably a lot. How would you recommend organizations who want to influence and want to show up in the LLMs be thinking about their own marketing efforts? Like, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, like 10 years ago, I built my first language model and I was teaching it
Right.
words. And I was
That's
so
wild.
proud when it started to
Right.
spell words correctly because it was character based. And
Yeah.
now it's word based. Now we've jumped way ahead and it's so exciting seeing like that evolution. But the
Yeah.
process is the same, it's a word predicting machine. And so the more, and it is a bit of a popularity contest at its core,
Mm,
more you are represented in the training data among contextually relevant topics and information that you care about, that you want to show up for, the better you'll do. That's super important. You could show up a bunch in the training data, but be related or convoluted with some other industry, and that could actually hinder you, right?
right.
You want to contextually show up in places online where these conversations are taking place about your product or your services. And then aside from that, so that's like the core LLM, just showing up without any sort of RAG, retrieval
Yeah.
augmented generation through search engines. That's just,
What does RAG mean? Some people are like, wait, let me Google that. What's RAG?
yeah, so retrieval augmented generation. So RAG can essentially reference a set of documents to better kind of update and improve the output of the core LLM model. And what
Mm,
we know, today's LLMs to be doing is they're accessing search results. They're doing RAG
right.
through real-time search results. And it's not transparent always as to what those background queries are, where it's collecting information. Also, it has to like meet some criteria in order to even deploy that. Anthropic,
Okay.
they had documentation leak like a year and a half ago. It was fascinating. And it was essentially these like rules and guidelines around when to deploy a background search and when not to. Right? If you
Fascinating.
ask, Claude, what's the capital of France? It doesn't need to go to search results, right? It knows that. And so
Right.
there are some like guidelines around when and why you should deploy that. But it's important to know that is what's going on. And so again, like traditional SEO is going to be more important than ever. And it's a brand mention game, in addition
Right.
to having kind of control over that messaging and showing up in search, it's being present on those other players that are showing up in that retrieval augmented generated way so that you're part of the conversation. But the end of the day, it's still a little bit of a game of a magic 8 ball. It's
Right.
probability based. So it's like people are
Mm.
trying to measure the 8 ball, people are trying to influence the 8 ball. You can do whatever, you can do all of these things and still not show up.
Mm.
But you're essentially increasing the likelihood or the probability of you being surfaced in these
So are
results.
you saying there's no guarantees?
There's absolutely no guarantees. And there's also like, there's no reverse engineering the LLMs or AIs. Like,
Mm.
it's not how these things work. It drives me crazy. Like, yeah, the LLMs, they don't even have access to their own internal thinking. They don't even know why they generated a 404 URL for you. They have no idea.
Right.
They just regurgitated this information. And so
Right.
I think that's really important to be aware and to also like set those expectations with clients, right?
Right.
Because a lot of GEO people are kind of over promising these deliverables or
Mm.
metrics when I feel like that's a really dangerous zone because
Right.
at the end of the day, you don't have direct influence over that. You can do everything that you can, but yeah, you just got to be careful how you're talking about it, how you're setting those expectations.
What should be the level setting? Like instead of going down this path of the traditional way and applying it to LLMs, like what do you advise people say when there is a bit of an 8 ball? Like what would be the framing that you would advise they start to embrace instead of the current model?
As far as tracking goes,
As far as communicating it to clients, like if instead of saying, yeah, we're going to reverse engineer the LLMs and then we're going to give you some insights into how many citations we think we can influence based off of this, like, is there a better way that you've cracked to say, like, this is actually, if marketers had to take a Hippocratic oath around
yeah,
how we show up, this is how we should be communicating more regularly with our clients? Like, what does that look
I
like?
love that. I love that. I think
I
it's
wish we did have to do an oath. I
Me
think we should,
too. I
but
think we should.
I think
That
we
should
should.
absolutely be a thing
Yeah,
because
it's
it is kind
there's
of
some
like
crazy stuff that's going on. Yeah.
cash grabs.
Right.
It's the
Yeah.
gold rush, and people are
Yeah.
losing their minds and selling their souls for this stuff. It's like, it's
Right.
disgusting. No, I completely agree. And I think part of the conversation should really revolve around like honest and transparent expectations and AI literacy. And not even just telling them about how different this technology is, show them, right?
Mm.
Show them. Do the same prompt multiple times in the same
Yeah.
interface and view how differently it can, surface answers and explain the probabilistic nature of these models and how it's
Mm.
not, there's no ranking system that doesn't exist. What exists are these background kind of probabilistic scores for, you know, what they surface. We'll never have access to that information. Today's
Right.
measurement modes and like tools are extremely crude metrics
Mm.
based on synthetic pretend prompts we think people
Right.
are doing. We don't even have that
Right.
data.
Right.
And then it's like, what did the Magic 8 Ball say when they ran the test? So what
Yeah.
I always recommend to clients and people talking to clients as well, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, but is to build your own internal tool. It is
Right.
easier now than ever to go to Claude Code. It will save you so much money, so much headache.
Mm.
Like, build your own custom internal tracking tool that you can run at whatever frequency you want. You have full
Mm.
control and flexibility. It is pennies on the dollar with the API. You can even use I love is it they call it like batch API with
Okay.
OpenAI, where you can run
Yeah.
tens of thousands of queries. I'll do it at night for different clients, and
Yeah.
it's so cheap. It's crazy,
Cool.
but it takes
That's
a little
cool.
bit longer. So you can set things up like that. But that's really the approach I would take instead of, paying ridiculous amounts of money for these tools, and you don't know how often they're run. You don't know,
Mm.
what exact API they're using or how it's prompting in the background. I mean, there's just so many unknowns, and for
Right.
a like barely directional metric, I just think we have to be
Right.
more thoughtful.
So would you say more businesses and organizations should be thinking about how they can create internal tools that essentially would run the same questions to ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, etc., on
Yes.
their behalf with prompts that they upload, at a fraction of the price of some of the off-the-shelf tools so they can get the same level of details because you don't believe that the data that those tools are even getting is close to as good as what they could get if they just ran their own tools? Is that fair?
100%. 100%. And then you're able to run those prompts maybe a dozen times a day, right? That same
Mm,
prompt to get a better feel
right.
generally what
Yeah.
might be a range for the percentage that you show up. That's sort of
Right.
how these things work. So I feel like putting the power in the user's hands, and again, it's easier now than ever to spin things up like this. And I think when talking to clients, I was just reminded of this brilliant analogy one of my students, Ryan Shelley, shared with me of like traditional SEO is like having your product on the store shelf, and showing up in an LLM or an AI is like being recommended by an employee.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, you
Right.
can do only, you can influence it in different ways. You can hope that they recommend you, but at the end of the
Mm,
day, it's up to the employee who they decide to recommend to, when
right.
and where.
So when it comes to marketers, we've got we're going through as marketers one of the coolest times to be a marketer.
Yeah.
You have tons of opportunity in the sense that there's a lot of change happening. But with the change comes the necessity and the capabilities to now be able to build things like you just described.
Yeah.
I think something that you've done for the community, which is cool, is build Orange Labs where people can actually get coached and guided around how they could build some tools like what we just discussed. Can you tell me a little bit about what Orange Labs is and how it's facilitating this augmentation of marketers with AI?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. It's funny because it really emerged from a clear need beyond the course that I teach. So I teach actionable AI for marketers, and it's the only kind of small cohort based live where we're hands on and you're building a project throughout the 4 weeks that solves a problem that you really have. So it's highly
Mhm.
collaborative, it's highly hands on. We learn by doing. And I have kept in contact with tons of graduates beyond the course. And something just kind of continued to emerge in these like monthly meetups was just a demand and a space to continue the conversations, right? Different
Mhm.
kinds of support are needed after that kind of foundational knowledge is set. And
Yeah.
so I really wanted to give them that. And I tried giving it to them on Slack and it didn't work very well and it was
Right.
disorganized. And so now we've really kind of rehomed everything in Orange Labs where we do regular workshops, tutorials, networking events. People are getting real-time support. You jump in with a problem, and this morning someone asked something about creating product descriptions with this given data of a large website. What's the best way to do it? People are jumping in with prompts that
That's so
they
cool.
could start with, right? Jumping
Yeah.
points. So support and troubleshooting, and there's no dumb questions. I think
Mm.
something that I personally have struggled with in the actual, the AI world is lots of barriers to entry.
Right.
It's set up to kind of exclude people that don't look a certain way and don't have a particular academic background. I just don't think that's the case. And I think it's
Mm.
important to make sure that we kind of have this space where everyone feels comfortable and welcome and able to contribute and learn and fail. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing is like break things, try something.
Yeah.
Like that is the path to AI success. And so continuing to like kind of cheer one another on and support those efforts is so important.
So I heard you speak recently and you gave examples of some of the cool things that folks at Orange Labs have built. Would you be able to share with the listeners an example or two of things that your like community members have been building out of some of the collaborations within the community and just give us a glimpse into what might be possible for some marketer that's listening to
Yeah.
this and thinking, I want to do it. I don't know how to start. What could I even create that would be of value for my career?
Yeah, I would love to. I love that question. So many of the graduates are on fire. I mean, Federico Pasquale is like an AI legend in and of its own, but he has basically created this workflow that uses Phantom Buster to identify people that are engaging with competitive posts.
Oh, cool.
So he's a one-man band. He started this company called Wordcrafter. It creates AI generated content briefs based on what's showing up in the search results. So based on
Mm.
intent and all this information, it kind of curates that for you. And he he saw Byword doing that. And so he thought, okay, I want to see who's interacting, who's engaging with Byword.
Crazy.
And how could I capture that information? He collects it through Phantom Buster, but then he has one of the most incredible prompts I've ever seen that I share at Brighton and in the talk is he collects all that in a Google Sheet, and then using GPT for Sheets, he works with an LLM to feed it, their name, their title,
Wow.
their just basically whatever's on their LinkedIn. So it has all this
Right.
contextual information, also contextual about what comment they left, how they
Oh, no way.
engaged with this post. Yes, and if you
That's
do it
wild.
like recently, you can really tap into like, oh, this person just said this thing, but it crafts these drafts to reach out to
Yeah.
people based on what they're doing with competitive content on LinkedIn. So
That's crazy.
it was just genius. I took that workflow and I ran an experiment for Brighton. I got over 80% response rate. 80%.
So wild.
So,
That's wild.
so wild. So like, yeah, that is just kind of nuts.
That is nuts.
Maddie Osman, she's so brilliant. She's a graduate. She has this brilliant Zap that she set up that, she realized like I get so many emails a day and we have all of these link building opportunities. We've got, these haro requests we just kind of largely ignore. And there could be cool opportunities in there for clients. And so she set up
Right.
a Zap that collects all the haro queries, evaluates them based on client criteria, topics, industries, kind of validates which ones might be of value, and then
Right.
takes it to the next level where it even drafts like based on everything the blogsmith has ever written about this topic. Here's how we might respond to something, and it creates a draft for her to respond. And then
That's wild.
it's wild, and she gets all this through her Slack. So she'll get like an alert. Here's who it's from. Here's the deadline. Here's a drafted response and a direct link to that haro to respond. I mean, it's just genius. But I
Yeah,
think
that is genius.
it's so cool. And where these, examples really stem from is these people, these professionals have brilliantly centered the work and the efforts over a clear problem. Identify a really, really clear, specific problem. They break it down into specific steps with that engineering mindset. And
Yeah.
then they discover and use what technology could help support this. They don't start with the technology. That's where people get
Right.
lost and overwhelmed, and it's a lot. But people that start with like really, really clear problems. One last example I think is so cool that just came about is Martin Canchola he is a maniac right now. He has spun up so many truly insane things that the rest of us at Orange Labs were like, how are you? This is insane. And he uses base 44. First,
Okay.
first he goes to Claude and he has
Right.
Claude break up something he wants to build into specific steps for base 44. So he has
Okay. What's base 44?
base 44 is like a stronger, replit, lovable. But
Okay, cool. Got it.
you can do
Yeah.
more with it. It's more powerful,
Cool.
basically. And so he's doing all sorts of crazy things over on base 44. And something that I think was just so brilliant that he built recently for his sales staff. He's CEO of Apartment SEO. So he has, a team that talks to different apartments and renters and whatever, but he connected this real-time voice monitoring model that was open source for emotion, for context,
Wow.
but he has specifically crafted it to evaluate a live sales call based on their team's specific goals. And in real time, Ross, you're gonna love this. In real time, it will like tell his sales guys, hey, you're talking too much.
No way.
Yes.
That's wild.
And yes, or it will say, ask this follow-up, or like it
Right.
it supports them in real time
unreal.
on specific things. That is like the future of this stuff, in my opinion, is
Yeah.
like taking really powerful models, but customizing them and fine-tuning them for your specific industry, for your specific tasks. That's
Right.
where these kind of workflows really take off. And they don't
love it.
have to be this complicated. A lot of people are
No.
building simple stuff, and that is incredibly valuable in saving them 20 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day.
Right.
That stuff adds up too. And so with students or people that haven't used this tech before, I'm always really urging them, start super silly small. And it's not
So do I need to be an expert to join Orange Labs? Like if I'm
no.
somebody who's fresh off of the streets and I'm in my first job, I just graduated,
Yeah.
but I know that in this market where the jobs are all saying I need AI if I want to have a job in the future, like am I the right person to apply for Orange Labs, or is this from people who are a little bit more senior and experts?
No. So it's really for, it's specifically kind of designed right now for marketers early in their career that are interested in learning more about it. A lot of the
Cool,
examples are marketing related.
cool.
But anyone can join. We do
That's awesome.
see a higher like engagement and success rate of people who experience the course first, and then you
Yeah.
actually get free access to Orange Labs for a year. So
And where
that's
would they find the
that's
course?
what
The
I
course
pay for.
is,
So there
and where's
is
the course?
there's kind of two funnels right now you can sign up. I feel like Maven has a better overview because they've captured all the data for years now. I'm on my 11th
Cool.
cohort there. I
That's
know it's
wild.
crazy. And then there's also a sign up on Orange Labs. So yeah,
Cool.
that's like a fun way to get people through, but you don't,
I
it's
love it.
not necessary. We were trying to develop it so it can just be easy.
Nice. I'll add some links to the show notes as well so folks can check it out. One
Yes.
question, we're talking lots about the marketing side. Humans are like onions. That's a Shrek quote, but we also have the personal layer. Can people you have you seen or have you used AI personally and been able to unlock some cool opportunities, unlocks from a life efficiencies? Are you using it in that way, or are you exclusively using this for work?
I use it for all sorts of things, Ross. And I have not ever shared this story before,
Okay.
but this is so perfect because before the call, I gave you like a little tour of
Yes.
what's out there. So you're not going to believe this. So we were kind of in a bidding war for this house, and my husband and I loved it. We had actually never seen it, but we were sitting there, and I go, "Should we write them a quick letter?" And he goes, "Yeah,
Right.
we should do it." And we didn't have much time. It was kind of really rushed. So I had ChatGPT help me, and I fed it all this information about what we liked, like the trees, all this stuff, and we sent in this letter. It got in just in the nick of time, and the sellers, that's how they made their decision to sell it to us. I feel like we got this
Wow.
home from a chat GPT like letter. That is
That's wild. That's
crazy.
wild. That
Crazy.
is
So
crazy.
I use it in
Very
all sorts of little ways like that. Or like when it first came out, there was a company that owed me quite a bit of money, and they were just
good.
dragging their feet, you know?
Yeah,
Classic. And my
yeah.
voice, my writing style was not working, right? I had
Wasn't working.
wasn't working. It was going back and forth, was not
Yeah.
freaking working. And so I went to ChatGPT and I said, I need you to like respond to this as if I have counseled a lawyer or you
Mm,
are my lawyer, right?
I
And we
love it.
need to get this done. I was paid within 30 minutes. So
That's wild.
this is like I'm like we need power to the people. We need
Yeah.
this in like libraries everywhere. People
Yeah.
battling like, medical bills and
True.
like trying
True.
to get like food stamps. Like that's
Yeah.
where this stuff needs to be. So I'm just
It's
like,
true.
oh, I think about it all
Yeah.
the time. Yeah.
So much opportunity. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that's always interesting. It's like, yes, it's great for the marketing and stuff, but you can do so much as well on the personal side. And if you can arm and educate more people about the tools, it can be a life changer for many. I think
Yeah.
that's cool. All right, let's put the capitalist hat back on for a second.
Yeah.
So SEO, AEO, GEO, LLM SEO, AI SEO, EIEIO, whatever you want to call it. What does the future look like for this space?
What does the future look like for this space? From which perspective? From
Let's go with all of them.
Oh gosh, okay. I'm really sort of, I wouldn't say fearful, but wary that a lot of like Google's AI mode patent will come to fruition because it's kind of slowly already has, where they allude to just not showing organic results, right? It will just look and resemble kind of that chat GPT interface, and there might be like a
Wow.
small text of like expand, here
Hmm.
for organic or whatever. I feel like that is,
That's in the patents?
yeah. I can send you
Wow.
a link after this. It's insane.
Love to check it out.
It's
That's
insane.
crazy.
Yeah.
So you're saying the 10 blue links are gone?
Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah. I think they're going to look a lot different. They could just look like
Hmm.
those little, AI mode, kind of like what chat.
And what does that mean for SEOs? So now put it in that context? Like when that type of a shift takes place, is SEO dead?
I don't think it's dead. I really don't, because Google,
It's
for
on life support?
example, in AI Answers needs
Right.
this pipeline. They have to figure that out. This is kind of, I think this is a Google problem to solve of
Mm,
like, how are you gonna keep this kind of content life cycle alive when you're leeching off of everyone's content to deliver the answer? You know, you said you were going to organize the world's information, and now you're kind of authoring it. That's a huge jump.
mm,
It's a huge jump. And there's a lot of loose ends that still have to be figured out in order for this all to pan out in that way. And they also have a ton to lose, you know.
right.
Um, a lot of like trust built up in Google that could be lost through this process. So they have to be careful. I don't think SEO is dead. I think it's the pie is going to get a lot smaller. I think we're not going
Mm,
to go back to pre-AIO traffic levels. Like that doesn't exist. The can is open, if you will. This is out and not going back in. But I think marketers are going to have to get a whole hell of a lot savvier in off-site efforts. They're going to have to get
mm,
a lot better at social and meeting the audience where they are off-site in those efforts, and really adding some of that like zero click value, you know.
right. Right.
Um, and then I think from like a company perspective, you know, I see this is a huge infrastructure play for Google, right?
Mm,
They are bringing Gemini into platforms everywhere, into Calendar, Gmail, Sheets, Maps now. Like the friction is going to continue to go down for us
right.
to use and leverage this in really like efficient, helpful ways. And I think that's Google's play long term. And then they'll, you know, we're the training data right now.
True.
And so at a certain point in time, we've gained all of these benefits using the technology in these platforms in these ways for efficiency gains, for you name it. And then my guess is they're likely to pull that back and say, okay, now you have to pay X a month to
Right.
retain this after they've
Right.
figured it all out with us, again, and
Right.
their training data.
Yeah.
So that's super interesting. But yeah, again, I mean, from a marketing perspective, it's getting a lot better in offsite, um, and understanding like where your customers are having these conversations and where they're taking place.
What do you think happens to all the tools, the platforms, the tracking tools, et cetera? Like, do you think we get to a world where everyone has their own and they just build it, vibe code style, like you described?
I don't know. It's a good question. I feel like that's definitely, you know, a trend. I wonder, like, long term, is that helpful? You know, in what
Mm,
ways are we? I think, and this exists in just the AI industry in general, but really exists in what we're talking about. Like, there's a major measurement problem.
hmm.
We don't have data on how people are using or searching these. We have no visibility into the background queries,
Right.
right?
Right.
We might be able to get a little bit here and there depending on if they're using particular APIs or, you know, Bing's recent like quote unquote grounding queries, but that's a stretch too. We don't even know where those came from. So there's
Right.
huge disconnects in the metrics that we're receiving and trying to make sense of, and it's just
Yeah.
it's a mess, quite frankly. And so I think we're almost better off evaluating things from what's driving traffic today, what's currently
Mm,
working, and doubling down on that, and maybe
right.
experimenting with a new platform for 3 months. Does it work? Yes or no? Pivot
Right.
accordingly. And I think we don't do that enough. You know, like that's
Fair.
not something that we're sort of like trained or taught to do in that way. And again, you were ahead of this forever with the Reddit stuff and the social
Fair.
stuff. So I think
Appreciate it.
that, yeah, that will continue to be huge throughout this.
When you think of some of the players, we've got Google, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Microsoft, all of these things going on. Does anyone stand out to you as going down a path that might not necessarily lead to the best outcome for civilization, people in general? Like, where do you see gaps in the way that this whole world is going right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've got major concerns about, you know, the people making decisions about major AI tech at the moment are in the hands of a very few set of people in positions of power that are not thinking bigger picture or looking out for the best interest of others. A lot of them, quite frankly, are like plain pretend tech gods, and they're using and leveraging AI hype to their advantage to even further establish these positions of power to accomplish all these things, to accomplish more funding, more customers. They have found a content and attention flywheel that works really well. And OpenAI does this more nefarious and better than anyone, where they will say and announce crazy stuff that immediately gets picked up by all this media attention. All of us are talking about it, users are talking about it, they're getting signups. Nothing comes out of it. Nothing. They have announced dozens of things at this point that do not come online. Where is it? Where is it? So it's just no one's being held accountable, which is incredibly frustrating. And I was just talking to someone this morning, like, I think us as users have a lot more power collectively than we think. A lot of these people and companies in positions of power, they're strategically like PR positioning this stuff as evolutionary, as inevitable. It's not. It's a few people in small, tiny rooms making these decisions for all of us. And it doesn't like it's crazy. Like that it does not have to be a thing. And we should be pushing back a lot more than we are today. And that accountability is so huge. Yeah, it's
Is there specific things that you think there should be more pushback against that is not happening today in the market?
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? Like these companies don't get to be protected behind this experimental label. Like who's accountable when ChatGPT convinces a kid to kill himself? Or, gives bad medical information, or, there's financial advice. Like all of these things are so incredibly dangerous, and the sycophantic nature of the systems double down on that, right? They're trying to please you, and they are reinforcement. They're getting better by RLHF, reinforcement learning through human feedback, which just to please us. It's like it's further biasing the system. And so instead of like setting us on the right track, it's so easy to lead these things in whatever direction we want. And that's why you see all these AI girlfriends and boyfriends, they tell us what we want to hear. It's like, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah,
So
it is wild.
That's scary. Yeah.
One of the cool things is I think it was probably like 6 years ago when I first heard you talk about the bias within the LLMs and what's going to come. And it's coming / it's here, like you were early with a lot of it. Do you think there's a path ahead where the power structures shift, where the people's voice can influence this? Or do you think it's too far gone? Like, where do you think we are?
So I think a lot of the nefarious efforts behind this technology go completely undetected. And this is by design. This is completely by design. There's an acronym called TESGRIL that was invented by Timnit Gebru. Incredible, accessible paper on the topic. She also has a video on YouTube, and it breaks down like this transhumanism, this altruistic, AI efforts, and they're under the veil of altruism and like doing good, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of, again, these guys playing techno gods, and we can turn ourselves into computers and live forever, and intelligence is the most important thing we need to all, point to and breed for. And it goes back to really gross, scary, racist eugenics practices, which unfortunately is a huge undercurrent of AI that a lot of people don't know about. The IQ tests and IQ came from this eugenics practice to, really exclude groups of people. But this is still continuing today under new names. And literally right under our noses. Like there's an institute in London that does a lot of transhuman stuff that is still active. And their history is disturbing and it's scary. But a lot of like the Peter Thiels of the world and these people kind of moving all the purse strings, this is what they really think. This is what they really believe. And it's not talked about enough. It like sneaks under all of us because it sounds positive, and then you dig a little bit deeper and are like, wait, what? So I think general awareness about those things would be incredibly valuable
Right.
for us as like a society and moving forward. And that I really hope to like continue shedding light on that.
Do you think curriculums will start to kind of educate around this stuff? Like, is that the play that we might see in the future? Or is it kind of like in the hands of the users and the people to kind of even teach their own and educate their friends? Like,
Yeah.
is it like, would the curriculum ever be influenced, or are we talking like 5 years, 10 years out from now before?
These big AI companies, they already have their hands in the curriculum,
True.
unfortunately.
That's
They
true.
do.
Yeah.
That is a huge push, huge push. OpenAI was all over that 3 years ago.
It's true.
So unfortunately, they even at that level are getting across their own messages
Their
and
own
their own things.
messaging. Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't want to reveal how the hot dog is made. And I think
Right.
that's the important part people need to be learning about is
Yeah.
what goes into building these systems, how offshore workers are being paid next to nothing to consume the most horrific things you've ever imagined in your life. They go on to have, lots of mental problems, rightly so. Like there's so many gross things that get contracted out to build these models. And then again, the models, at the end of the day, they still magnify the biases. They still magnify all these issues. They're still incredibly problematic, but they're just a little bit more consumable for public.
Mm.
Um,
So it's not just a complete computer on the back end of these things. There's a reviewer, a human somewhere in the world who might be seeing things. Like, what do you mean?
So a big part of there's always been a couple bottlenecks in AI, right? Like it used to be compute. Now we have lots of compute power. That's not a problem. It used to be
Yeah.
training data. That was a huge problem. And then the advent of ImageNet and all of the hand labeled images. Lots of humans have had to like label videos, images
Mm.
for these training purposes. I mean, think moderation on social networks and how that
Yeah.
works. There's a incredible documentary called The Cleaners, and
Okay.
just the trailer alone will kind of get across what I'm referring to of people having to watch this horrific information and make kind of editorial decisions about like we should shut down this live over here. But this is all training data. This all gets fed into the
Wow.
systems. And
Right.
so, we're learning more and more about these facilities and about these people that undergo horrific treatment. They make
Mm.
nothing. They're stuck in this place watching absolutely awful, gory things.
Right.
And these big tech companies, they know it. They know that
Right.
that is what powers a bunch of their systems, but it's through multi-contractors, so they're kind of trying to keep their
Hands
hands.
off. It's not their employees. Yeah.
It's
Right.
absolutely wild.
That is wild. I want to shift gears a little bit. So there's a whole wave of conversation around agentic this, agentic that, agent this. What does this whole move towards agentic things mean? Like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Are they building little agents? What is an agent? Could you give us a breakdown on like how folks should be thinking of agentic anything, or is it just smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, great question. And this has evolved recently. So
Okay.
Ross, if you asked me this, I don't know, a year ago, smoke and mirrors. It's
Right. Right.
agents a year ago was the new buzzword, and they were
Yeah.
literally not doing anything that we couldn't write a Python program for. Like,
Right.
what the hell? So
Right.
that was very underwhelming, and a lot of us were confused by that word and how it just exploded. Today, they are starting to incorporate really interesting capabilities that we really haven't seen before. So, for
Cool.
example, Claude Chrome,
Mm.
insane,
Right.
insane. You can literally set up like a Google Doc, having it do very specific things for you, and it will go through your instructions and open up new tabs, and
Wow.
and you can watch it do this. And the
Right.
way that it does it is genius. Like
Right.
my head exploded the first time I saw this because I've always thought, these are language models. You have to feed it the whole, website code and it has to dig through the JavaScript and blah blah. Blah. No.
Right.
This agent specifically is opening new tabs. It's waiting for the page to load and it's just taking a screenshot. Like genius because
Wow.
it wants to see client side. I don't
Right.
need to mess and guess with the code. I just want to
True.
see it. So they're using image recognition models
Right.
stacked on
Right.
top of these language models to do insane things, to see what's on the screen, to see what it is that you're talking about. Okay, what button would that be? What form field? I can fill that
Mm,
out. And then they do it. I mean, that we've never seen this before. And to
no.
the ability to
No.
do it all through your Chrome, and I would recommend, set up a fresh Chrome account so it's not connected
Yeah,
to all your stuff just in case.
that's a smart move.
Yeah,
It's a
be
good
careful.
good
Careful.
advice right there.
Yeah, you gotta be really extra careful with these because it's
Yeah.
funny, like the this kind of like agentic stuff, it's exciting. People are going like all in on it, but at the end of the day, we're still struggling to design adversarial networks that can identify bad actors or bad prompts
Right.
from real ones. The
Right.
language models are not they're not fact models. They're not
True.
even real world information models, right? They're just trained on all of the internet's text. It's very different.
Mm, right.
Um, so we're gonna have to figure out like better ways of navigating this, which I'm sure,
Yeah.
people are working on, but very, very interesting. And then it's like, well, what happens to the internet? Is everything a
Right.
markdown file for these agents?
Right. Right.
Really, really interesting.
What's your thoughts on the future of browsing experience? Like when I think of AI and I think of myself as a bit of a nerd, so I know I'm early with things and the world won't think the way that I think is normal. But I would 100% take a picture of my closet and say, hey, ChatGPT, hey, Claude, hey, Perplexity, this is how I dress. Go
Yeah.
find me all of the things that I should be wearing in the winter. Buy me some new sweaters, buy me some new shirts, go on eBay, go on Amazon. I'm giving you a 2 grand budget to go buy these things. And I don't need to see anything. I'm accepting you to buy them. Just make sure they're in a large and I'm chilling and then I'll get them at my house. But I'm not going to be influenced by search as a human. My LLM might be. I'm not going to be influenced by an ad that remarkets me because I'm not browsing around to different sites and reading blogs and stuff like that. Like, what are your thoughts on the future of am I too far? Am I like, yeah, Ross, people will do that in like 20 years or 30 years, but most people will never do that? Am I off, or what's your assessment on like that type of thinking? Am I too far gone? Is it rooted in reality? Would you let your wardrobe be bought by an LLM, or am I crazy?
I love where your head's at, Ross. I think this is a good and valuable thought experiment for sure. And I love the direction they, because I think lots of people would kind of consider something like this. But knowing what I know about neural networks and these models,
You're saying I'm gonna get a whack outfit.
I'm thinking you might get one item that costs $2,000. Like you have to
Fair,
you have to give it more
fair,
context,
fair,
at
fair.
least a tiny little bit more guidance, I think. Or I
Yeah.
do wonder, like, at the point where, advertisements start to happen, which I already have on ChatGPT and OpenAI,
True.
how is that influencing things, right?
That's a good
There,
point.
there was a crazy, it wasn't a leak, but I was a psycho and I like zoomed in and chopped up the video and got all the still frames of the whiteboard of a
Yeah.
Google. Sergey Brin came to this like hackathon at Google, and it was this guy wearing a shirt of like a topless woman. I think that's how you can find the video. It was just stupid, but it was him, and then it
Wild.
zoomed over. I don't know. They thought it was funny, and then it zooms
Fascinating.
over to Sergey, and the whiteboard was so interesting. And I spent like hours assuming, because I'm like, what was so important? This was when ChatGPT
Right.
came out. I was like, what was so
Right.
important? He came in on a day off,
True.
and what was behind him was this like thinking system about contextual information about the user. So, what do you know about the user? They're searching for party planning XYZ, or it was a birthday party, it was some event, but
Yeah.
then it had like these clouds of thought of like items to purchase all at
Wow.
once from different suppliers for a
Crazy.
party. So
Wild.
maybe this was on Walmart, like table, blah, 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 utensil, whatever. It like had a bunch of items that
Yeah.
made sense for this woman who was querying about, again, it was like some sort of party. I just thought
Mm.
that was so, so interesting where they're trying to make that leap and kind of
Right.
predict what you might want to purchase based on these types of queries. And they've been
Right.
doing this for a long time, you know,
Right.
and collecting all this information. I also remember I was at a hackathon in Seattle for Google Voice. And
Hmm.
we were some of the first users to see, God, what was it called? It was like the back end for developers to use it and build apps was like this chat something thing. But anyways, I was like digging through the documentation for this API, and I asked the instructor, I was like, it says here like brand recognition because it was connected to Google Home and the camera. And I was like, are we able to recognize the brands in someone's home? And they didn't they didn't answer me. But I've never forgotten that. I've always been like,
Wow.
that was crazy. And then
That is
I had a
crazy.
Google Home in Seattle, and I remember like opening the cereal box, or like I would pay attention to like what I was wearing. It's like it's could be,
Right.
you know, and
It's
all of,
true.
there's just so much information that we can gather now about people and buying habits. And so maybe it's more to your point, Ross. Maybe it collects all of this. It knows your buying habits, what styles you go
Mm,
for, your size. I don't know, and it
yeah.
maybe can do a great job.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild. So you've had a fascinating career, and some of the folks listening to this are going to want to be Brittany when they grow up. How what advice would you give to someone who's in the early few years of their career, they want to get on a trajectory like you've had? What advice would you give them to be successful in this industry and in marketing and AI, etc.?
I think tinkering has literally driven most of my career. Like
Mm,
having a very competitive, just like nature, I always want to like figure things out. I like to take
right.
things apart, you know? And so
Yeah.
SEO was so good for me early on because I was a little sponge. I just wanted to figure out how to compete and how to rank for this and
Yeah.
testing things. It was so fun. And then once I got a taste of like, oh my gosh, machine learning, neural
Right.
networks, K nearest neighbor, like linear regression, I never went back. I was like, this is where
Right.
things are going.
Yeah.
And so I think that curiosity, and I think building silly things. Like I see
Mm,
Simone Gertz does this really well on her YouTube, where she builds and engineers robotic things. And I
yeah.
think that serves people in their career so well because it's like portfolio items you can reference.
True.
It builds your confidence. You're
Mm,
testing on something really silly, right?
yeah.
That if it breaks, it's not gonna, upset
Cause an issue. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So I've tested so many silly, ridiculous models
Right.
or cron jobs and Python programs on really ridiculous things that solve stupid
Yeah.
problems. And I think that is kind of the sweet spot where you, again,
Mm,
like you learn by doing. And
yeah.
so breaking things is great, like,
Right.
and now if you're early in your career and you're curious about this stuff, the fact that you have a 24/7 support system with something
True.
like Claude, you kind of have no excuse. If you've
Right.
ever been curious about building something, about a particular, area of industry or whatnot, you can really get savvy in terms of learning about it, but then also executing tools to kind of continue to absorb it. Claude could build
Mm,
you like a Reddit scraper that
true.
evaluates, who the top companies are in conversations that include this keyword, what kind of sentiment
Right.
are around that, what topics, questions. I mean, you can build incredible things, and I think there's so much data at our fingertips today that with the advent of AI and tools like Claude, especially as content marketers, and this is something I love chatting with you about, is like, what can we be doing with that data? You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
like Kristen Tinsky type stuff, where
True.
they were
True.
taking like the DUI data and creating that map
Right.
and doing really, really brilliant things. And that's how your brain works. And I think the most powerful kind of up and coming marketers are going to be able to wield that in really valuable ways and do it in a way where we talk about brand mentions or the new backlinks with all of this AI search,
Yeah.
but they're going to figure out ways to engineer these campaigns where they get other people to do the talking for them. They get
Mm,
other people to do the brand mentions for them.
right.
That's where I see this kind of like next level
I love it.
marketer take off. Yeah.
So it's like double down on experiments, create things that are fun, quirky, meme related, just have some fun on the internet and tinker and build. apply that same thinking to taking data and building things and trying to create interesting, unique stories, see what type of buzz and hype you can get, do a deep dive, deep analysis into trends associated with elephants in Africa versus Asia and understand their
Yeah.
biometrics or whatever, try to save the elephants, create some type of AI to help you with that, and then
Yes.
talk about that and get some buzz. And that's kind of the playbook. Am I
That
going down the right path?
that's absolutely the playbook. Yeah,
That's
you
cool.
got it.
I like it.
Follow
That's
your
awesome.
interests, you know?
And then on top of that, if you're not sure how to build these things, you can go into Orange Labs and it will give you the launching
Yes.
pad to figure it all out.
Well,
So that's
for
pretty
your
cool.
support staff,
I
exactly.
like it. That's awesome. Here's another question. So, what's the big bet that you are making right now, for yourself on the industry or the industry? What's the big bet? Like when you look at, all right, right now over the next 12 months, I'm going to put my chips in on this. This is where I'm spending time because I believe this is very important. This is going to be some of the most important work that I do in my life. What
Yeah.
is that today look like for you?
That's such a good question. I think it really revolves around AI literacy and empowering people with AI skills and knowledge and tools to get started. Again,
Love
they're
it.
by design, the AI industry is really, really hard to break into. Even
Mm,
from like an informational standpoint, a lot of the courses and books available are very tech, mathematical heavy, which is
yeah.
fine. But for a marketer, you don't need to know
No.
Transformers architecture to
Right.
use an LLM in a value driven way. And so
Yeah.
it's about kind of finding that balance of knowing enough to know what the capabilities and limitations are, but then
Mm,
also knowing how to like best apply it in ways that actually make a difference for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
If folks want to learn more about you, your work, etc., where
Yeah.
should they go?
LinkedIn. I think you got me on this LinkedIn kick, honestly, a couple
I
years ago.
tried.
I love it. I love it. It's
Love
great.
it. That's awesome.
Yeah, so trying to share more stuff there and connect with more people there.
That's awesome. All right. So, marketers are listening to this episode. If there is nothing else that they can do, what's the action that they need to take in the next 48 hours that they can move with and go from here with?
Honestly, to show up. I think showing up
Mm,
is the hardest part. I tell, Orange Labs members and students like give yourself 5 minutes a day. Like show
mm,
up for 5 minutes. Try just test and engage with one of these models in a new and different way to learn something, to apply something. And I think that truly is the hardest first step is just setting aside the time to experiment and like be easy on yourself. You don't have to create this like perfect end result.
right.
I always challenge people like if you want to solve something with AI, make a super ugly V1. That's your goal.
Right. Right.
Do not try to make it look nice or have all the bells and whistles. Ugly V1 is your goal.
Mm,
And so to just like be easier on yourself and show up and just create the time.
I love it. Brittany, thank you so much for showing up not only for this podcast, but showing up for the industry all the time, especially for all of the folks over the years who you've impacted. It's been amazing to watch. It's been amazing to see your journey. I am so grateful to be your friend and love seeing what you do for the industry, for the culture, for the market at large. So thanks you
Thanks,
and
Ross.
keep doing your thing.
I appreciate you. Thanks.